All right, so there could be a huge problem in the state of Florida when it comes to vote by mail. Now, there are a lot of people, particularly Democrats, who might be expecting vote by mail ballots to be sent to their homes just to find out that they're not being sent them at all, changing years of precedent that if you're an active voter, that you would get a ballot for the next election and primaries and other things like that. But the rules and the laws in Florida have changed that now all of a sudden those numbers are significantly smaller. Now, I received the message yesterday and somebody showed me how in Miami-Dade County, one of the only counties really showing their numbers publicly right now, that the request numbers for Democrats has gone down by nearly 50% compared to 2020. And that's a big problem for Democrats because most of their votes nowadays are done vote by mail, some early voting, but a lot vote by mail, very, very little of it on election day. So this is the heart of the Democratic vote. So what has changed in the law? What can voters do? What's the problem? What's the prognosis? So let's go ahead and get into that. So first of all, what law has changed? So the absentee ballot or vote by mail ballot request has changed. So previously, if you requested a ballot for an election, so let's say I voted in 2008 in the Obama election. If I got a ballot then as long as I'm an active voter, I will keep on getting a ballot year after year after year, and I wouldn't have to worry about requesting a ballot every single election. Now, Florida has changed that law. So those people who have been getting ballots for years and years and years without actually requesting it, now you have to request a ballot every single election cycle. So if you request a ballot, if you want a ballot right now for 2024, you need to make the request now, even if you didn't, have to do that in the past. So they've totally changed it. And the problem is a lot of people don't know about this law because really, I mean, let's be honest, how many people are watching news about the Florida legislature and the laws that passed there? So there are going to be a ton of voters who are going to be affected by this. Now, Republican voters and independent voters are going to be affected by it. They're going to have a number of people that are expecting mail-in ballots that they're not going to get them. But most importantly, this affects Democratic voters because Democratic voters are the ones who, again, as I mentioned, most of their vote, or at least a large chunk of their vote, is going to come from vote by mail. There are going to be a lot of people sitting there wondering where their ballot is. Now, they have until, I believe, October 24th to request a ballot, but by that time, if they don't have a ballot and they're not aware of the law, they might have to actually get up and go out and vote on election day, but they might be sitting there thinking that their ballot is going to come in and just might wait to the last minute and might be in a rush, causing possibly a problem on election day. So these are really big issues that a lot of Democrats, I mean, if we're talking about this number being cut in half in Miami-Dade County, then this means statewide we can talk about registered Democratic voter numbers as far as vote by mail being cut in half. And the problem for Democrats is then they have to get all those registered Democrats to actually turn out to vote. And this probably affects Democratic leaning non-party affiliate voters as well. They might also get vote by mail ballots, and then they'll have to, go ahead and chase them as well. So this whole change in the law has caused a huge problem for Democrats. Now, overall, this is basically a voter suppression tactic because there had been no problems with the law prior to that. There were no problems with going ahead and requesting a ballot and then having that ballot come to you each and every year without having to make a new request. The only reason to do this is to discourage people from voting by mail. Now, again, the big question now when it comes to the Democrats is, are they going to be able to get all of these people to turn up on election day or early vote? Or are they going to be able to inform them that, hey, if you want to vote by mail ballot, you better make a request now. But it looks like right now, based on the Miami-Dade numbers, that message is not coming out, that it's not getting out. People aren't making the request. This is going to be possibly a big, big problem for Democrats. Now, this is where we can kind of blame the Florida Democratic Party, and particularly Nikki Fried, the chair of the Florida Democratic Party, because they did something this year that was stupid. And it was stupid based on this law that we have. Now, would it have changed much? No. Could it have changed some? Yes. and that is canceling the Florida presidential preference primary. Now, as odd as this might seem, a lot of people get an absentee ballot even when the race isn't competitive and still fill it out and send it in. A lot of people do that. Now, if people would have been able to request a ballot for the presidential preference primary, then they would have been able to go ahead and get that ballot and then get all the ballots for their local primaries, maybe if there's a municipal race on a different day, and of course the general election, they would be able to get this. But now they didn't have they didn't get a presidential preference primary ballot, so therefore they now have to go ahead and request a ballot for the general election because a lot of people just don't vote in the regular primaries. So the presidential primary in Florida and the regular primaries for local and state offices are absolutely separate. So this actually does cause a problem for the Democrats. Now, why is canceling the primary a problem? In some of these counties, Miami-Dade being one of them and some others, on the date of the presidential preference primary, there were actually like city elections and other things, and people went ahead and put in their ballot requests for those. But let's say you were in a county that had no elections except the presidential preference primary on that date. That means that you couldn't even submit an application for a ballot for the presidential preference primary because it wouldn't have been possible to process. So a lot of people just were expecting a ballot, didn't get it, but then they knew, oh, well, it's canceled, so therefore I don't have to put in a request anyway. Though it would have informed people earlier and got them on board earlier than what we see now, where Democrats are now really, really suffering when it comes to this number. Now, at the end of the day, how much does this matter? Well, we're really not going to know that answer until Election Day because we really do see kind of this big issue with the Democrats just not being organized in the state of Florida. And I mentioned this in my video a few days ago when I talked about the Electoral College and how we have a big problem in Florida where the National Party doesn't trust the local Democratic Party, and then the Democratic Party, even though they want help from the National Party, the local Democratic Party, they don't trust the DNC or D-TRIP or DSCC or anyone like that. So it's just this kind of, circle jerk that the Democrats have with the state of Florida. But unfortunately, these changes in laws might make it that the Democrats could do worse than we expect. We have to keep an eye out for those requests. As I mentioned, the state hasn't updated those requests, which is kind of odd. They usually do, but they might just update them on the day that the ballots are actually mailed out, and then we just might get a whole slew of numbers for every single county. So that could be what the process is going to be. But overall, this is a fumble by the Democrats at the state level, not informing people that they have to get their vote by mail ballot. They have to ask for it again. The Democrats aren't really doing that to a really strong extent in the states. The National Party isn't doing it as well. So I think that kind of shows the priority that the National Democratic Party has on Florida. It's just an expensive media market in all those cities. And why do that when your path to victory can be somewhere else? But if we're talking about congressional races, if we're talking about the U.S. Senate race to take Rick Scott out, we're talking about a situation where all of a sudden the Democrats are going to have possibly a 3, 4, maybe 5% reduction due to the fact that a lot of people were expecting a vote by mail ballot. They don't get it. And then they just don't show up to vote because, they could fill it out on October 14th and then just throw it in the mail. But on election day, they might be working. They might be doing something. And those people who do not get their ballots and then pass the deadline, a lot of those people, well, all of a sudden, if they pass the deadline, they might not know that they actually passed a deadline. And this becomes a problem. So keep an eye on what's happening in Florida because it does seem like this can impact the election quite a bit. If we're in Miami-Dade County and we see only 50% of those people who had a request for a ballot on the Democratic side actually is they're requesting a ballot now, if it's 50% of 2020, that's not good. Then that means, and we're talking about 115,000 voters. So the Democrats are going to have to mobilize more to get 115,000 voters to actually go out and turn up on election day just in Miami-Dade County alone. So we're not even talking about Broward, Palm Beach, Orange, Pinellas, Hillsborough, Duval. We're not even talking about those. We're just talking about Miami-Dade. This can be a huge problem. This could basically mean 1 million voters who were expecting a vote by mail ballot will not get a vote by mail ballot, and the Democrats have to essentially work to get those 1 million Democrats out the vote, not including the how many hundreds of thousands of nonpartisan affiliate voters that they're going to have to get out as well. This is a real cluster F in the state of Florida. I wanted to bring this to your attention because you might be hearing about this in the coming days regarding the vote by mail law that happened in Florida. So this was just kind of a commentary on my part. I wanted people to know this. I'm going to be doing commentaries more to maybe give people a little bit of an idea what might be happening in some states like this. A lot of people might not know about the new Florida law requiring vote by mail and how it can essentially suppress the Democrats because it only, who's affected by that? A ton of the Republican vote is going to be election day and early voting, not as much vote by mail. So if they just take away the heart and soul of the Democratic vote, they just need to turn up on election day and have bigger results. They'll have a bigger gap than what would normally be. So if you like these commentary things, go ahead and comment below. Tell me what you think. Have you heard about this Florida law? And if you have, go ahead and comment down below. Tell me what you think. All right, I'll see you all in the next video. Have a wonderful day wherever it is you are. Bye-bye.